The X Composition by Doris Charest. What I'm going to show you today is how I paint an X composition. An X composition is also called cruciform or cross. Essentially, it's a broken up X. So the shapes don't have to be equal. In fact, they shouldn't be. And they are separated. And visually, it creates an X. Your eye sees it like an X, even though it's not a strong X like you would write it on a piece of paper. So let's watch the video and see how I painted my latest X composition. The X Composition by Doris Charest. What I like doing is covering the whole canvas with one base color. And in this case, I've chosen red. I love red because when you paint over it, there's little bits that peek out, and it's a great color. It creates a glow in the painting. Here I'm just using a foam roller from the dollar store, and I'm blocking in the base shape, the base composition that I want. So I'm just going to roll the color in. I like the texture that this roller creates. It just adds quite a bit of texture, and it's a wonderful way to just get a painting going really quickly. You block in these base colors and then you start painting on top of it. Now I've drawn in with some charcoals, the basic shapes, and I'm starting to add paint. The paint that I'm adding is blue because if you look on the color wheel, blue is opposite the red. And I'm going to add that as a contrasting color. So every painting has a dominant color. In this case, my expectation is that it's going to be red. And then I'm going to have a secondary color, which is going to be blue. Notice that I've created a texture just with the back of my paintbrush. I love this texture because the underneath color shows. Now I'm just adding a wee bit of a darker red just to help guide my eye towards the focal point. I want to brush it in and almost like blocking it in so that I can paint over it again in a little while. I just want a guide towards the center. Here's my squeegee, and I'm creating texture in the paint with the squeegee. Now I'm going back in with orange. I decided I didn't like that red, and then I needed to break up some of that white space at the same time. So I'm going back in with orange. Orange is, in my eyes, the way it is there, is a better color to go with the blue that I chose. So I'm going back in. I'm not eliminating all the red. I'm making the orange dominant so that I have red, orange together. Here I have my ruler. I'm painting with my ruler. So I'm adding a different shade of blue with the ruler. It's a great way to add a lot of texture and create a varied line. So notice how the ruler leaves little bits of blue here and there. It's a great way to paint a painting. Or add a little bit of texture. Create a little variety. I'm going back in with a lighter orange. I want 3 variations on that orange. I want a darker red like I had. I want a dark orange. And now this is a lighter orange. So that I have different kinds of blues, a lighter blue and a darker blue. And now I have 3 kinds of red and orange. And I add those in. I don't cover the whole space with the color. I want to have the other 2 colors show as well. I'm just adding in more color. Now I've decided to add grays. I like the way the gray mixes in with the orange paint and creates another color altogether. The gray is a neutral, and what it does is helps balance the other colors. The blue and the orange are very high key colors, whereas the gray is very neutral. So then my eye gets to rest once in a while, have a little bit of break from all that bright color. And I just add little bits of gray here and there. And it's going to show when I paint underneath it all. So little bits of the gray will show through, little bits of the red shows through. And any time that I paint a color, what I do is I leave bits of the original color in there. Here I'm adding a little more gray and it's blending with the orange. I love the way it does that. I'm breaking up the blue now with some more orange so that the blue isn't just one big flat space. I want to create some variety. I want the shapes to be irregular. Now I'm adding in a color called quinacridone gold. It's a great color. It's beautiful. It's more of an orange gold color, and it goes great with the blue, and it's just one of my favorite colors. So I start with a light version of it, and then I start adding a little thicker every time. I add just another layer. I don't want the gold to be just one big flat color. I want variation in that color. So here I go, I'm painting a little bit over the gray so I have some variety in the gray, and the gray isn't just one big flat color. It should be quite varied. So the gray is a way to neutralize and calm you down, for the lack of a better way to say it. Here I'm again adding more variety to the quinacridone gold, so I have thick areas and thin areas. Now I'm adding texture. I want to have a little bit of texture and pattern in there, so I just use a stencil and I paint on top of the stencil, and that adds a little bit of variety to the color. Then I use a block, that's a stamp, and I just stamp the texture in. This stamp is like a text, but you can't read it. And I like the lines it creates all the time. Now I'm adding in some light areas to help guide my eye, and I scrape the paint. I create a texture. Now I'm adding polka dots. I just love polka dots. They are wonderful in a painting. And I'm adding lighter areas here. I'm going to paint over those later. I'm redefining the blue. Some of the blue got painted out or stamped out, so I'm just adding it back in, just to make sure I still have some of that blue showing. I'm adding that in and scraping again. I've decided to add some lighter blues now. And what I'm going to do is keep going, creating that same pattern created by the clock. So the clock is just a guide. It's a way to create a pattern that makes the painting more interesting. And then I add that blue in other areas. So if you add blue or any color in one spot, you should add it in some other areas as well. So I'm just adding it to the edges and scraping. Once this painting is done, it's going to have wonderful texture. I'm adding back some red now. I keep saying red, but it's really the orange. I want to break up those big blue bands. Those big blue shapes just kind of take over. And I want the eye to go all over the painting. So I'm adding back in some orange color and scraping through so I can still see the blue underneath, and I just keep adding. I want to break up some of those colors. The color I have in some areas I'm not happy with, so I want to break it up. See how when you glide your brush over all that texture, there's little bumps of red, but the blue still stays in there? I love that part. It's a great way to have a variety in the colors that you have. Already all that texture and the breaking up is just adding to the painting even more. I love the way now your eye can hop from one color to the next, and I have an X composition not only with the blue, but with the red, with the gold, and the light blue, the dark blue and the light blue. And I'm just doing touch-ups here. So that's the X composition for you. Have fun painting and enjoy what it can do for you.